I was 19 years old. I was just beginning my college career as a freshman. I had been in a serious relationship with my high school sweetheart for the past 5 years. And we found out that we were pregnant. We were scared, didn't have any idea what we were going to do. And of course, the only thing that popped into our mind was this would ruin our futures. This would devastate our parents after all the money they spent to put us in college. So we decided that we were going to get an abortion. I was 12 weeks, and the night before I was supposed to go, I decided to stay home alone that night. So my boyfriend went on his way. I woke up the next morning. I called and I called and I called, and he never answered the phone. And I was panicking and I didn't know what I needed to do. So I had to go wake up my mom. She didn't know that I was pregnant. And at that moment, I was scared to death, and I told her that I was pregnant. And she took me to Planned Parenthood in Nashville. She was embarrassed, so she didn't park in the parking lot. We parked across the street. As we were walking into the door, there were people on the side of the road praising God and telling me that they could help me. My mom just grabbed my arm and waited for the nurse to open up the door. They took me inside, and I sat in a waiting area with other women and men, and my name was called. I went up to the counter and I filled out a form. My name was called. They took me into this room to change clothes, and they told me to go into this other room. When I walked into that room, there were orange walls. There was this big machine. There was a bed with stirrups. And on shelves in that room were the remaining body parts of babies that had been taken from other women. And I sat there and I looked at those things in horror, like I was in a film, and I couldn't leave. The nurse and the doctor came in, and they told me to scoot down to the end of the bed. They didn't take my hand. They didn't tell me that there were other things that I could do. They didn't comfort me. And they began the process. I didn't have any pain relief. I sat there and screamed, for it felt like forever. I screamed so loud that I know that my mom heard me and anyone else that was in that other room. I could hear the loud noise of this machine and this suction that took the life out of me. When it was over, they just left me there, and I had to go into another room by myself, in pain, not knowing what the next steps would be. I waited there until they told me it was time to leave. It was never to be spoken of. I was never allowed to tell anyone. It was a secret that I kept for 33 years. I went through a lot of things after that where I thought God was punishing me. Failed marriage, miscarriages, a car accident where I almost died. But all in all, God had a plan for me. And 33 years later, I became born again, and I found the Father. And He had a purpose for me. He led me to a church who was Spirit-filled, something that I'd never known ever in my whole life. I'd gone to church, but it wasn't that type of a church. You didn't have a relationship with God. And in that church, they taught me how to hear the voice of the Father. They taught me how to sit before the Father and rest. And one day in our church service, our pastor announced that there would have this meeting called Speak for the Unborn. And it was about saving lives. And at that moment, I was like, I can't go to that. I can't go there because they would know my secret. And I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I was supposed to be at a function for my work with my husband. And right before I was supposed to meet him, I called him and said, I can't go. I'm supposed to be at this meeting. And I showed up, and my pastor was there, and I was the only one other than his wife at this meeting from our church. And as they started speaking and explaining how they save women and men and save lives, I was able to share my testimony. The Lord revealed that it was time, and I had never told a soul other than my husband. So at that moment, my healing began. But what came about was my pastor asked me to be the spokesperson of our church. And he said we want to involve as many ministries as we can to help save lives. And at one of those meetings, a woman who was a part of the SaveOne ministry was there. And she began to tell us her testimony. And she said that she was my mom, but her daughter resisted her forces and said that she wasn't going to get an abortion. And I touched her hand and I said, I was the daughter that didn't force. I followed through on that authority. And she began to tell me about SaveOne. And she told me that it is a healing process where they take you deep within to make you come out and reveal all of the trauma that you went through. But it's not a painful one, because every step helped me to get to where I am today. I am so thankful. I'm so thankful for her. I'm so thankful for SaveOne. I'm so thankful that I have been healed. I have been set free. I have been redeemed, and I have been delivered. And I'm so grateful that I get to have a chance to save one. I have a chance to save another woman who may have this choice set before her, but I am going to be able to give her a choice to choose life and not death. My name is Heather, and I'm a truth teller.